So, welcome everyone to our Tuesday night talk. And we're now in the middle of a series called Embracing 2022. I'm your host, Elizabeth Padilla, and our speaker for this series is Sister Denise Lawrence. And so tonight's topic is embracing challenge.
Yeah, I think everybody has different challenges. And I think there's a challenge of being a caged tiger. Have you got that challenge? Anybody got that? You have. I have. Yeah. You have a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, a lot of, I don't know. I like that volcano that just exploded, that one by Tonga. Of course, it created a lot of trouble for them. But to me, that's a very beautiful symbol of a challenge that you can't embrace because you can't really. I mean, it's a caldera. We have a caldera in Yellowstone Park, right? And if that one goes, it's a big deal. But a caldera is, I think, like a very interesting symbol of some very important, I think, challenge that's going on. There's this huge energy that is wanting to release itself. Can you feel that? And so maybe your challenge might be you don't want to be in the crossfire, but maybe you don't have any choice, because when there's a big energy about to explode, people are not really quite sure what to do with it. If you're looking on the news, what you will see is there may be war in Europe. Now, we haven't had that since 1939, which is a long time ago. Most people weren't even born in the previous century because we're already 2022 and flying through it. So we have a very big potential explosion over there. And we have a lot of climate change explosions, and we have a huge explosion of domestic violence, huge, globally, which is one of the main, I don't know if it's a byproduct or a product of COVID-19 restrictions. So if it doesn't get you one way, get you another way. So this violence that's going on in our surroundings, on the inside and the outside, and maybe in relationships and in the polarization. We're a very divided world right now. Tremendous and intensifying polarization between the wealthy and the poor. I heard another byproduct of COVID was the poor got half as or double as poor as they were, and the rich got double as rich as they were. So that polarization is a tearing force, a very tearing force. This polarization, this violence going on between men and women that is unbelievable. And so you want to embrace these kinds of challenges. I don't know. Embracing a tiger is a very well-known image, but you embrace a tiger. Have you seen the size of their teeth and their claws? You embrace the tiger. You're embracing your fears. So I think that's a very important thing. I don't know if most people actually have articulated what their fears are. I think challenges and fears is in some ways synonymous. Um, some people are afraid of being alone. Some people are afraid of not being alone. Some people are afraid of getting killed or death or pain or separation. Well-known fear of failure. I think that's like an old fear. And fear of success, I think that's an old fear too. People work through, I think, that. But this huge tearing energy that's going on, which is a kind of something that you can feel subconsciously, and that you see a few signs of this splitting, tearing energy that's happening. In some ways, it's active in different illnesses that people are having to deal with, social problems especially. So it is taxing our resilience, our patience, our ability to expand what we can tolerate, where to draw the line, how to put boundaries. All of these things are challenges for people that are not clear what to do. And I think one very big challenge is that you don't know if you can rely on anything. And another thing that you do start hearing is there's nowhere to run. Because when you have a challenge, there's fight or flight or freeze. And I think a lot of people decided to freeze because there's nowhere to run. They don't have the power to fight. Or if you fight, you can't see any possible fight that you would win. And if you freeze, you go into a sort of a denial. What really is needed? And to me, what I feel is coming into your power is a very important way of approaching challenges. And I think that you can only really embrace challenges when you're in your power. And there are some systems of thought where you hear about surrendering to the danger, surrendering to the pain, surrendering to the inevitability. And I think that that's a good thing because it takes a lot of strength to lay yourself down in front of the tiger instead of embracing him, because anyway, either way, he'll have you for lunch. So I think when you surrender, it's all about not resisting. And when you resist, you're pitting your inadequate energy against a larger energy, which is definitely going to consume your little energy, and you'll be really in a weak position. But when you surrender, or by surrendering, you actually take out the teeth from what is attacking you. I had the good experience of surrendering to physical pain. I think we also need to surrender to social pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, all the various different threats that can come. Because I think if you don't resist, there's nothing for it to strike. You're not combustible. And so instead of trying to fight something where you know that you can't win, I think it's quite good to just let go and let God. You know that expression, very well-known expression, that is a step to take when there's nothing you can do. Let go, surrender, become like water. Water is very interesting material because it always finds a way, right? And it is most flexible. It can go anywhere, downhill. And where does the water go? It always goes to the ocean, one way or the other. And the ocean is where it comes from. So you're part of a cycle, part of a process which is natural. And we are encountering the breakdown of the arrangements, climate, society, ideas, religions, all of the things that have been holding together more or less for quite some time, but not that well. They're actually really breaking down. And that's absolutely nothing you can do. Just like when that volcano exploded, it was a very, very big explosion. I heard the NASA saying that it was many hundreds of Hiroshima bombs worth of explosivity. And it destroyed a pretty big piece of land that just went down. And when a person is in front of the reality or the symbol for something that is much greater than what a human being can do anything about, then it brings you to a reality about yourself in relationship with the power of nature, in relationship with the power of the, restructuring of the world, physical world, social world. All of this is going on. Some people can see it more clearly than other people. Some people are more optimistic than other people. I'm very optimistic because of this sense of I am forever as a spiritual being. The world is forever, and the plan, the divine plan, plays itself out and carries on, and we are part of it, and we have to embrace that. And it is it's like a risk, and I think it's very good when a person is ready to take a risk, because the reality is nothing is predictable, nothing. And so you make a plan, you make a decision, you just try and be safe by doing nothing, and you end up getting nowhere. So I think very much that being willing to take a risk, relatively calculated risk, not reckless, but you have to take a risk. I think when your conscience is really clear and you can see as far as possible the big picture, you get a feeling for what you have to do, and then you go for it. This is better. Thank you.
How does anyone develop or grow without facing challenges? I guess I'm wondering, in making this challenge of challenge a natural kind of adventure, how would we go about? Because now I know I'm speaking to the right person, because as long as that I've known you, you've always inspired me in how you are willing to take on challenges.
What's important is to keep on reinventing yourself.
Mhm, mhm.
And I restarted my life many times. You know, leave one place, go to another. I mean, I have my track, which is on track totally. And that is my interest and commitment to spirituality, but I do not remain on the same level because that is totally boring. I get easily bored. So I need to reinvent how I do my spiritual practice continuously. I'm sure a lot of the time people look at me and say, "What is she doing? Where is she? What's going on? Why is she doing this? Does it mean, something negative?" No, it doesn't. It's just that it's a very good way to keep everything authentic and fresh and real. And I remember when I started doing talks, I made a commitment. I will not say the same talk twice. And I once went to Disneyland, and there was something called the I don't know. You went in a boat, and there was a guy there who would tell jokes all the way through, and then he would say that like 50 times a day, every day for the rest of his life. Same joke, same thing. I thought, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to anybody. You might as well get a robot and they can do it. But a human being, so everything has to be new and fresh. And I don't like to get into a rut. Because then I start to feel like a caged tiger. And a caged tiger will be nice to whoever gives him something to eat, until he doesn't. He eats the guy. And I think that
I did the same show for 5 years. I did over 1,300 performances. I'm someone who can do tedious tasks, but then I'll find something fresh in the simplicity of it, or even in the complexity of it. But then, of course, after 5 years, I was ready to move on. And then, of course, we have our jobs and our children and our work, or you didn't get tired of journalism.
I was constantly causing trouble. That's a good way to keep things fresh, because in the newsroom, it's either really boring or total chaos. So I found the total chaos more suited to my character. I'm quite good at handling chaos and troubleshooting and things like that. But you see, what would happen is, I think I have certain principles which are very important. And one of them is that you have to give people their money's worth. Like if you're performing and they pay good money to see you, you give a good performance. If you are a journalist and you're investigative reporter on TV, you do a good job. Because if you don't give people their money's worth, then you're betraying the social contract. And to me, that's a violation of like your dignity as a human being. You can't do that. You have to be true. You have to be real. You have to respect the people who are on the other end of what you're doing. If you're a teacher and you don't teach your students well, this is like a wrong action. It's a negative karma. And if you're doing something sloppy, why? It's like a disrespect of the human person. And so, like, there's certain principles, and other principle to do with, there's a lot of attention on corruption these days. a lot of documentaries about this type of corruption and that type of corruption, and this one did this and that one did that. People who have banished their conscience from their existence and they act according to what happens to people who banish their conscience. They will damage other human beings for some petty benefit. They think it's okay, you can make $1 million by damaging 1 million people. That's a good idea, right? Very good idea. Haven't understood the philosophy of karma. They're betraying themselves, they're betraying what it means to be a human being. So I have these kind of principles. And obviously you can't do too much about other people, how they function. But your actual own self is your work. You are the architect of your destiny, and you create yourself, and you leave a trail when you die. You leave a trail of something, and so you have to think about that. Someone said to me once, you must justify your existence. And I said, yeah, that's absolutely right. I must justify my existence. And so everything I do has to have some meaning, some point, some purpose, which is discernible and that I can articulate. Otherwise, I cannot justify wasting my time and wasting my existence. Life is short, although we are eternal. But, everything has to have meaning. You must find a way to put meaning in it. And then, you will get challenges because you may butt up against people who don't feel that it's necessary to be quite so austere in your expectations of the human person. But on another side, you can sort of oblige a person to function at their optimum and not let them get away with wasting their time, wasting their life, or wasting my time. And so somehow I have this feeling within me that pushing for an optimum kind of excellence is a good thing. And of course, it does encourage all sorts of challenges to come, but these are grist for the mill. These are what carry you forward, because you have to find a solution. You have to get through it, and it forces you to grow.
How would one develop that spirit of facing a challenge? And some people have battle after battle, or even illnesses that they have to overcome. So what could be the stepping stones to either have a different perspective, or how one can look over the wall, so to speak, and not make the challenge appear so daunting?
I wouldn't worry about things being daunting. If they're not daunting, they're not worth doing. I mean, it's a funny thing. We study and practice something that we call Raja Yoga, which is very well known, the ancient Raja Yoga of India. And then people keep using the word easy Raj Yoga. But when I first came across it, it was defined to me as the most difficult thing that anyone could possibly do. And then I said, well, in that case, it's worth doing. If it's easy, it's not worth bothering with. So I think that it tells you my mindset. And I think the way to, in answer to your question, the way to get where you want to go is you have to have determination. You have to not give up. And, I'm not a sprinter. I'm a marathon. I'm in for the long haul. And I am a person who sees the big picture. And if I come into any kind of interaction with people or group or whatever, if you don't give me the big picture, I'm not in. I'm not interested. The big picture, and if I stick around, I'll see the big picture, and then I'll see everything what's going on, and then I'll decide my track, and then I do that. So that's me. But I always see the totality. A big picture is you can see the past, present, and future. You can see where it's going. You can see the possible hiccups that can come. And if you see someone going, where you don't want to go, I mean, I could see it coming a long way ahead. And I'll say, have a nice day. If that's where you want to go, don't expect me to come there too, because I don't want to go there. So I have a very clear vision of where I'm going and what it takes to get there. And of course, there will be stuff on the way. But I think when you have this clear vision, when you see the whole road and you see all the way to the destination, and you keep your eye on the destination, the things that come in the way are simply things to be, as Daddy Yankee said, when you encounter a big boulder on your way, you have three possibilities. You can explode it, you can walk around it, or you can fly over it. Up to you what you want to do. Flying over it is probably the best.
No, I can appreciate, really being able to see the big picture and get an idea of where I need to go with something. But I think that anytime we want to have a change, I will be challenging myself.
My relationship with change may be different. I'm very aware that change is happening, and I have no plans to change myself at all. I like myself. Maybe other people don't, but I do. And I think this expression parivartan, this is the Hindi word parivartan, and one of the meanings is to return to your original condition, which means it's all about being true to yourself. It's really not about becoming something other than what you are, but returning to your essential self, if you might have strayed from it or lost sight of it or whatever. But there's a lot of change going on, and change can be destabilizing. And I think when you keep yourself really in contact with yourself and in contact with the destination, which is also your original essence, then you've got this focus around which all hell can break loose, but you're focused on that focal point. And then the disturbances, the changes that are taking place are fine, because you're anchored in that you're returning to your essence. And for me, that is the change that's of interest. But I don't want to change my personality. I don't want to change my perception. If I want to change something, I maybe make it sharper focus. I may look further down the line. I may look deeper in between the lines and down the crevasses, but I'm not going to change where I'm going, because I know where I'm going. So I know there's a lot of people who are thinking about, like, for example, changing their sanskaras. We're always hearing about changing your sanskaras. And my interpretation of that is, no, I'm not going to change my sanskaras. I don't want to change my sanskaras. Nothing wrong with my sanskaras. But what change is relevant is to increase my personal spiritual power, to intensify my clarity, to make my purity level higher, my clarity level higher. So it's more like enhancing and sharpening and bringing into focus and making it more precise. I look at it more like that.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. So would you be saying that perhaps we already are perfect? It's just a matter of uncovering it. I'm not arguing though, because I do agree. The challenge for me is the road, to I guess relate to this idea that I already am.
Yeah, you already are, no doubt. But yeah, again, the word perfect is unclear because there's a lot of people who talk about I want to be perfect, and they compare themselves to a perfect diamond. They want to be flawless and this sort of thing. But there's another thing which is an interpretation of this word. I'm going with quite some of the Hindi words that we use. One of them is sampuran. And they use the word perfect as a translation for sampuran, but sampuran also means complete. And it is used especially for the full moon. You see, the moon is already there, and depending on its phases, you see a different amount of the moon because of its reflecting the light of the sun. And so when the moon is full, that's called sampuran. That means that you want to be fully reflecting the light of God through you. And that means also that you want to fill yourself to your full capacity with that light, with that power. So this is your focus.
That's beautiful.
The more you are full, the more you're reflecting that originating light, which is the light of God, or the qualities of God, the virtues of God, you're coming into your full potential, and you're not changing anything. You're taking light, which automatically makes darkness vanish, because darkness is something that isn't there, and light is something that is. You know, people talk about the force of evil and the force of good, and the force of God. And this what's positive is something that is there, and negative is something that is not there. And when you give power to negativity, you're giving importance to something that's not there, which means you're draining out your energy. So we're really learning about looking at things in a very different way, to see them as they are. And I like that kind of shift of perspective. So a change in terms of getting your focus clear and your precision in what you can perceive. That to me is really interesting, and all the other things fall into place when you focus on that one very important thing.
But then there's also these sanskaras of doubting oneself or fear.
Let's take a look at this word fear. You know, sometimes a lot of people think, you know, fear is a bad thing, and so you must be fearless and stuff like that. To me, fear is given. You know, anytime some dangerous thing is around, or some fearsome thing is around, you will have a response to it, which is called fear. And so it's like a red flag which waves at you and says, hey, you have to do something here. You got to make a decision. You got to make a choice because there's some danger, and you have a very small amount of time in which to handle this. So you have options. And whatever you choose is an indicator of what kind of person you are. I mentioned earlier about fight or flight or freeze. These are the usual responses to this kind of fearsome challenge. And then you have to see whether those are the only options. Facing it, then that's another way of looking at it is courage. You see, you have the heart for it. I know some people, or one person in particular, who doesn't have any fear, and this person also doesn't have any morals. That's not a good idea. So there is, although people equate fear with cowardice, to me, fear is a given, as I said, and cowardice is one of the ways that you can respond to it, which shows that you're not a very good quality human being, if that's what you decide upon. But if you take the course of courage and you do the right thing in spite of all sorts of bad things that are highly likely to happen to you, when you do the right thing and you do it anyway because it's your principle, that indicates that you are a person of can say moral fiber, a person who is a force to be reckoned with, and then you can respect yourself. Another way to look at it is that circumstances and the impact of people has been to split yourself off from yourself, and you have to grab all yourselves, all the different fragments of yourself back and hold them and assert them, and this is called your integrity. You hold all the parts of yourself, and you do not allow any fragmentation to take place. You're repairing yourself from life. Life will do all sorts of damaging things, and then you have to pull yourself together and bring all the parts of yourself together, and then you are an integrated whole.
Would you say that's why there is this symbol of the Vishnu to remember the one in the middle? Is this saying of remembering that whole being, whether it's feminine and masculine is one way to put it, but whatever those traits are, that I am not selling out.
You're taking the apparently easy way out, but to me, you're selling your soul. You're allowing yourself to get corrupted, and that's probably the worst of all bad sin.
Oh gosh, yes.
And so sticking to who you are and what you represent at any cost takes a very competent and spiritually powerful and rich person, because, you have to face a lot of flack when you do that. This is really, I think, important, because if you're going to do something which is taking you to your greatness, then you have to do it. And there have to be lots of challenges along the way, because not everybody is great like that. And the image of Vishnu that you were speaking about is a very interesting image, because perfect balance. In spiritual practice, there are many things that you have to add to yourself and many things you have to subtract. And the purification, the purging, the removal of all the gunk that has got on your soul is the subtraction. And then what you have to acquire is depth of understanding. And the result of all of this personal work is you become balanced and stable and steady. You cannot be taken down, you cannot be shifted. And there are symbols of this, that you have to be. I can only think of the French word inébranlable, but in English, it's like you cannot be pushed over. They can bang on you as much as they want to, like you're, I think invincible is the word. And you can't really be invincible until you're dead, because you can't kill dead people. And dead means that, you're not combustible, you don't have the ego problems, all of this stuff, you worked through it. And this is really what spiritual practice is about. Yeah, it's like embracing your immortality, because then you really, really see that there is no difference whether I'm dead or alive. There is no difference. Mm-hmm. There's a book from Jean-Paul Sartre, which is called Huis Clos. And it's all about dead people. And they are dead, but they're there together in a room, and they can't get out ever. And they're stuck with those people. And his conclusion is hell is other people, because you have to deal with these other people with whom you are not in harmony. An idea in spiritual practice, because the first principle of spiritual practice is to consider yourself to be a disembodied soul who then embodies yourself. So your sense of self, whether you're with the body or not with the body, it's the same self. And so dead or alive is the same. And physical death or ego death is the same. And so a person who's dead is a person who's been through these challenges, internal challenges, to a point where they get it. What am I? Who am I? And then you become who you are instead of being who you're not. When you're under, for example, someone who's under a guru, and eventually the person who's under a guru has to kill the guru. Because until you kill the guru, you're not free. Because the guru puts you in a tight box of disciplines and this and that and the other. So you have all the, techniques, but you cannot fly as a musician or a dancer or whatever until you killed the guru.
What does that mean? I think I understand, but if you could.
It's that you just break out of the constrictions. Because education, in a sense, is all kinds of rules and regulations and constrictions. And it's necessary for you to be so competent in all the rules and regulations and techniques that you can forget them, because they happen automatically. If you're playing an instrument, your fingers know what to do. You don't have to tell them. And you can go with the interpretation of the piece.
Does that kind of go with the saying that the disciple knows when they find their master, and they also know when it's time to leave their master?
Well, leaving the master is one thing. Killing the master is something else.
And what's that?
You have to use your imagination.
Well, no, but I mean, in what, like,
well,
I want to understand.
You have to destroy the power that person has over you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, you're not free.
No.
You see, it's very rare for a person to give all the juice to the person you're teaching. But if you're God, you do. You give everything and you run away, and watch the machinery play out. Because if you're God, you don't lose anything by that, because you don't have any ego. But, if you want to be that much free, you have to feel so comfortable in yourself that you can give everything and know that you don't lose anything by giving everything. You have to get to a point where you break out of that power
Mhm.
that guru has over you to
Mhm.
give you the boot and reel you in. That's still an enclosure, you know. The big tiger in a little cage that's not going to fly. You have to take out your cage.
The ideal here that I think we're sharing is that a good mentor knows that the disciple sooner or later has to stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, any parent has to let go of their children. A teacher has to let go of their students. It's normal. You must do that.
If I am resisting a learning, it just keeps repeating. If in this arena it happens, and then in the next arena I'll be doing the same battling, and I'll get, okay, wait a minute, why is this still happening? I'm not learning. I'm not facing the challenge in an appropriate way.
Then, you know, you get to a point where you dispense with all of that and then you go to another level. And once you go to another level, it's a whole different landscape. And that's really very interesting. One image for all of this is there's a big sort of glass pyramid with glass ceilings everywhere. And you can see what's down below, but you can't see what's above. And every so often you have to go through a ceiling, and then you're somewhere else with different people, different circumstances. You're on a whole different level. And that means that you have graduated from one level of doing things. And once you've done that and you come into another level, then you encounter completely new kinds of challenges. And you keep doing this, keep going through more and more ceilings. But without that, there's no progress. You're just going round and round in circles.
This is very interesting.
You really can't actually get to the next level until your challenges that you're skirting around become so extreme that you can't skirt them anymore. And it's a question of either you die or they die.
Should it always be that I have to learn from the school of hard knocks?
It's good school.
Yeah, but if I'm knowledgeable and aware, then why not be sensitive to what's really happening, to see things, as you said.
It's theoretical.
Well, yes, it is, but I can see a difference, like I was sharing, where before I would make it a bigger deal. This is new for me, to let it unfold. And then as time goes by, I realized I was projecting and it wasn't that big of a deal. And this is different. This is different.
Comes when we don't do that anymore. You got the message finally after
Yes,
the
exactly.
time. And then you're someone else because you got it. And then you can go to another level.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that.
Around and around and around, you're on that same level, and you get bored with it, tired of it, fed up with it, or it gets fed up with you, and eventually will come with a big boxing glove and punch you on the nose good and proper until you wake up and rise. And
Exactly.
that's lovely.
Well, when it keeps repeating, I'm going, hello, why does this same scenario keep happening? Then I realize I'm not seeing it proper. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah. So sometimes just a big hard knock will take your blindfold off.
Yeah. Yeah. And but it could have been worse. Things aren't as they seem. If I were to title that lesson, it is not always as it seems. But where's the challenge in that? I would think that you'd be karmatit if we really were at peace with the self. Wouldn't we be at peace with everything that's unfolding around us?
Yeah, you be at peace with it, or you see it as the great divine comedy and you enjoy it, which is kind of a little bit more interesting than just being at peace with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there's a certain activeness in that approach that suits me.
Definitely, I'm not seeing it as sitting in the back seat. I think it's good to be in the front seat with my hands on the wheel.
I told you earlier about big picture. So you see the big picture with all the games and everything that's going on, good, bad, and indifferent. And you embrace the whole thing and enjoy it, not just be at peace, but more really enjoy it. This is a great show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're an actor and you're a spectator and you're in it for the fullness of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just wanting to clarify because I really did resonate with what you were saying, especially on the perfection and also having faith in oneself. I think that's all that anyone would go for or admire. But then, how does one do that when we continue to see this as a dualistic system, right? Of good and bad, light and dark. And then to really see myself as already this whole perfect essence. And that sanskars don't really change. But then what is it that does change? What is the transformation?
Well, you're spiritually depleted when you start this whole process. And by the end of it, you're spiritually empowered.
So then you would see it as more, instead of light and dark, it's really about higher frequency.
Higher frequencies, empty to full, dark to light, switched off to switched on.
A question here, could you speak on the challenge of overcoming addiction, as this is a betrayal of the true self?
Addiction is, I don't think I would define it as a betrayal of the true self. No. If you have an addiction, which there's hardly anybody who doesn't have an addiction, but if you recognize that you have an addiction and you start to work through it, that is the same thing as spiritual practice. There's really no difference. And I think that people who seriously do the work involved in handling substance abuse, they are really going to wake up themselves spiritually and to graduate from focusing on a specific addiction to really doing your full spiritual work. It's a natural progression. So that's really a good thing. It is not easy, but it's possible. People who are in addiction recovery, there is a 3% success rate.
Really? Yep. Well, if we're all addicts in some way or another, I'm challenging you. How then? What is it that we're developing? What is it that we're overcoming? What is it that we're facing?
Oh, you're just becoming one of the 3%, which is quite big in comparison with the 1% that people normally try for.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay. It's okay. The thing is this, nobody's equal. Everybody is different. And, in our practice, it's all the time being told to us, you are number wise. There's all the way from the top to the bottom, and you're somewhere there in between the very top and the very bottom, and make yourself rise up to your full potential. But do not expect that everyone around you has the same potential as you. And there may be people who have a greater potential than you, but they may not develop their potential. And if you can discern your potential and reach your full potential, this is really good. And that involves working through all your addictions, whether they are identifiable or much more subtle, but it's the same.
That's very helpful.
Addiction has been called a disease of the will. so your will gets eroded by you giving away your power and allowing other people to constrict you and diminish you, and so you will react against that. And when you come into your power and you reclaim your intelligence, you reclaim your integrity, and you fill yourself with the light and power from God, what you get is willpower. And your freedom is you can do what you want, when you want, if you want, how you want, and not if you don't want. It all depends on you. You are the architect of your own destiny, and you are claiming that identity and taking responsibility. That's a very good thing.
That is a worthy challenge, because what the beauty is that you say these provocative statements, which are great because it allows us to think about these things. And then it's not the same ho-hum, nice talk about facing challenges. Wait a minute here. Well, I certainly feel this conversation has opened up some wonderful new perspectives for us.
You talked about surrendering, right? So when to surrender, how to surrender without becoming victim?
You see, when you're not surrendering, you're a victim. Take, for example, death. Death comes along and eats you. You know, in India, they say death will eat you. Or in our English-speaking culture, they say death will consume you, right? And that's when it takes you, and you're a victim. But if you are ready to die, then you're not a victim. You've surrendered to it, you've accepted it, but it has no power over you, so you're not a victim, you see. Pain is another one. People resist pain. They take pain medication. They tighten up against pain. Their blood pressure goes up. All sorts of things happen. But when you surrender to pain, it has no power over you. It will leave you. You surrender to the consequences of your correct action. Sometimes you have to take correct action, and it will cost you everything, and you accept the cost. You're not a victim. You see the difference? Yeah, it's a choice. It's a kind of sacred suicide, and it's always said suicide is a great sin. And some people call suicide a cowardly act because you will suicide rather than face the music. But there's another kind of suicide which is also exists, a sacred suicide, where I think like people who die for their country or something like this, it's a sacred suicide. You will lay down your life for something higher, because the principle is so high that it must be honored.
Could it also be equated with like ego death of some kind?
I think that until you have had an ego death, you cannot do this kind of suicide. There's very few people can do that. But, you know, like I said, the recovery rate for people who are in recovery for addiction is 3%. So, and then you hear about others, you know, who really strive for something very high, 1% or 0.00 something 1, you know, to strive for excellence with all the various different elements as part of that excellence is is something that a few people do achieve, but it's not everybody will achieve that. It's not, it's your right to go for it, but it's not automatically that you will achieve it. It depends on your capability and your application of all the methods and so on, and your expertise, and many, many things are involved. Dedication, determination, so many things are there to reach the goal.
Well, thank you so much. So would you mind closing with a meditation for us?
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth. And let us take a moment to turn within, go deep inside. And just take your time to connect with that inner essential self. Let go of your tensions, anything to do with your gender, your culture, your nationality, your persona, your role, and just be the light within. Conscious of your honor as a spiritual being of substance. Rise above and step beyond the games, the circumstances, situations. The energy of your mind is turned upon itself. You pass into another dimension, a world of light. You're aware of the higher being, the supreme soul, the source of light, love, wisdom, strength. And you surrender to that. And let that fill you and take you. You become one with that one. You're filled with that light and it radiates beyond you. You're stable and steady. Then gently let yourself return back to the everyday world. But do not be far from that space. Go there again and again. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Om Shanti.